In this lesson, we're going to finish the modeling of the arcade machine. Alright, so we've created our joysticks and buttons. We've got all of those ready. We've also finished out the arcade machine and the monitor, and now we need to get our glass in place. First thing that I want to do with this glass is I want to reset its pivot point. So to do this, let's go to our Hierarchy tab, Hierarchy tab, not Motion, and let's do Effect Pivot Only and Center to Object. Let's go ahead and take that glass piece and let's put that back into position. So it's going to go right here. Now I know that this appears to be covering up the screen, and you might be asking, well, why would we want to do that? Well, what we'll do is we'll actually create a material that we can see through, a transparent material. But before we can do that, we need to actually give this a little bit of thickness for that glass material to work. So how do we create thickness on a piece of geometry like this that is a perfect plane? Well, we can do it a couple of different ways, but the easiest way is to use a shell modifier. The shell modifier will allow you to add thickness to any object. So let's go ahead and go to our modifier list and let's grab shell. With that applied, you'll see that we have some thickness and we have a polygon across the back and the front. Now you can adjust the amount by coming in and adjusting the outer or inner amount. Let's go ahead and set our outer amount to 0.5 and hit enter. So with that set, we can go ahead and convert it to editable poly if we wanted to. In this case, I'm finished. I don't really need to do anything else to it, so I can go ahead and do that now. So right click, convert to editable poly. Let's go ahead and put that into position, and that's going to fit right in there. Now you may want to drag that down in the Y just a bit so that way it fits in there. Now let's also, while we're at it, let's just go ahead and scale it up in all three directions just so it fits inside of that cabinet with no problems. So now that we have the modeling finished, let's do one other thing. Let's make sure that we have that glass selected. I'm going to right click and I'm going to hide that. So here we can do hide selection, and that's going to get rid of that. Now it's not gone, it's just not visible at the moment. Let's do a little bit of cleanup on our model here. I want to go ahead and pull that forward a little bit and up. Just trying to get this set up. We've got that name, that looks good. I also want to create just a little bit of a lip on this outside corner here. And so to do that, I'm actually going to come in and separate out this outer casing from this piece here. So let's do this. Let's go to polygon mode and let's select these inside polygons and then the outside ones. And I'm actually going to detach that from the rest of this. So to do this, let's go down to Edit Geometry, Detach. Let's call this Screen _ Case. Notice that whenever I'm creating new objects, most of the time I'm trying to rename them, so it's very easy for me later on, and it's great to be organized as you go. So with this object set, let's go ahead and reset its pivot point. So Effect Pivot Only, Center to Object. And what I want to do is I want to smooth it out. Okay, so I'm going to give it some thickness and make it kind of pop up off of the arcade machine a little bit. So let's do Turbo Smooth, and you'll notice that that rounds it out. Let's bump up the iterations up to something like 3, and then I'm going to go to Editable Poly, Show End Result. Let's go to Edge Mode, and I'm going to add some edges in here to help retain that volume. This can be done very easily by coming up and using Swift Loop, but we won't have any guarantee that our edges are perfectly aligned. So let's go ahead and take this edge, and let's hit Ring. And let's do the same thing on this one. Hit ring on that as well. So now what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll use connect, and we're going to set that to 2 edges, and then I'm going to bump up my amount, my pinch amount, and let's set that to 90. Okay, actually let's go a little bit closer. Let's do something like 96. Good. Hit OK on that. Let's do the same thing across the middle here. So select that edge, and you'll simply hit ring. Hold Control, select this edge, and hit ring. Use connect, and again we're using those connect settings, and we'll hit OK on that. Perfect. So now you'll see that that appears to be a little more high res. It's very smooth and it's looking pretty good, but I want to raise it off of this over here. So I'm going to actually select the screen as well, holding down Control, and let's pull that out in the X direction. And let's also pull it up in the Y just a bit. I'm going to create some thickness along the outside edge. This can be done by selecting just the outside edge and going to Editable Poly and Border. Go ahead and click right here on this outside edge. This is a border. So a border is a loop of edges that are on an open polygon. And so there are no polygons underneath or on the outside edge here. And so this is considered a border all the way around. Now what I want to do is I want to push those back. I want to create some geometry doing so. Let me go ahead and go to isolate mode so we can see this in action. So with the local turned on with our move tool, let's hold down Shift and drag that polygon back. Notice that we're getting some thickness here, and I've actually got a new set of polygons. Let's turn off that show end result so we can actually see what happened here. So I'm going to hit Control Z one time. So select your border mode and select that edge, and that selects that entire loop around that. That's a border. There's another border in here. It's also right here. Okay. Now notice if I select this edge right here, it's not selecting it. It's not a border, it's actually an edge. Okay, a border is on an open polygon. So this has a polygon on this side and a polygon on that side. So it's not open. Select the outside border, and then we're going to hold down Shift. We're going to drag that out. That's going to give it some thickness there, and it creates a new polygon in its place. Okay, that's another way of creating geometry. So let's turn off border mode and go to Turbo Smooth. That has been smoothed out. Let's also turn off isolate mode, and there we go. Let's take both of these objects, so hold down Control, select both of them, and let's move them out in their X direction, and let's pull that up. Now we may need to come in and scale both of those up just a little bit to help them fit within that hole, because we can see right into the back of the arcade machine. So let's go ahead and scale in all three directions, and then you'll need to move it just to kind of help out with positioning that. All right, very good. So there we have our screen right inside of our arcade cabinet. Looks great. Now let's go ahead and right click, unhide all, and there we have our glass piece again. All right, so that is everything as far as the modeling goes on the arcade machine. Now there might be something else that you might want to do. You might want to round off these edges here on the outside edge of the cabinet. This can be done a couple of different ways. One way I will go ahead and show you. So let's do this. Let's go to polygon mode. I'm going to select this polygon, hold down Shift, and select this polygon. Then let's come over to this side. I'm going to hold down Control, select this polygon, hold Shift, select the next one in line. So that'll select all of those around the edge. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to use a new tool called Bevel. Doing so, you'll notice that it extrudes it out in some weird direction. The reason for that is because of the first option. Remember where we had talked about this before, and we weren't really sure of how it worked because we had a single polygon selected. I believe this was in the third lesson. Now we have multiple polygons selected, and this is going to come in handy. So instead of it extruding based on the group, let's extrude it based on its local normal. And what that will do is it will extrude those edges out in their own local direction. Let's pull this down, and we just want to go out a little bit, not very much. So let's do something like 0.25. Now what we'll do is we'll take that bevel amount, which you can see is -1. Notice the color of the polygons. Notice how they're kind of that darker red. These polygons are flipped inside out. They're actually crossing one another. So let's take this amount down, or closer to 0, and let's go up to something like, let's do 0.2 on this, or actually -0.2, and hit enter. Notice how we get this nice smooth edge now. Perfect. So now let's hit OK on that, and now we've got a nice smooth edge on our arcade cabinet. Now we are completely finished. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll talk about the unwrapping process, and what that will do is allow us to apply a texture to a 3D model. So we'll get into that next.